at challenge criteria and how you identify the best ones for the process, and we've learned how the platform works. So your challenge criteria being, is it feasible, is it pilotable, you know, have you got the resource to do it, that sort of thing. Then we had lunch yesterday. We then looked at identifying certain challenges to work through. So we went through ours and we looked at sort of broad challenge areas. And then we went through our challenges. We gave you demonstrations of the 6-7 challenges that we've gone through in York. What we learned, what worked and what didn't. We identified the stakeholders in your specific challenge areas. We put them on a power and interest matrix and then tried to identify which ones we would need to really influence, which ones we just had to keep informed, and which ones were likely to block the process, who we actually really had to focus on. We then looked at how you would actually best communicate with those individuals, because for each of those stakeholders that might be quite different, and also the language that you would use to get them on board. Then we looked at where the solution providers might be for those specific challenge areas you identified. We did the actual stakeholder matrix yesterday, and then we came back in this morning, and based on the conversation this morning about, right, where are your solution providers, they are also stakeholders. You may not actually know who they are yet, but what general area should you be looking for them in? And, you know, added and about the same again amount of stakeholders to the matrix today when we're looking at the solution providers. We then looked at how you actually get their buy-in, so finding specific what's in it for me, the what's in it for me question with those individuals. What is it that's going to get them passionate about your challenge? And how do you get them, A, how do you identify them and communicate it to them, and B, how do you get the best responses from them? And how do you keep that enthusiasm up? We looked at then at how you find and identify your internal teams for those specific challenge areas. So looking internally at who are the motivated people here, who are the ones that kind of get this process, which ones do you need to have in place in order to sanction and sign off some of the stuff that you might want to do, and what kind of support might they need? Because a lot of these people aren't used to working with heterogeneous groups of mixed bags of people, and the more stakeholders you have around the table, or not around the table, the more communication and updating and not coercion, what's the word, cajoling, that you might need to do to keep them on board, to keep the enthusiasm up. And then we looked at how the platform works. We did a bit of a platform demo at the end of yesterday, and really just went through this as a low-cost platform. For us, it got the job done. It cost £600 a year to run it. It's completely functional in terms of what we needed specifically in terms of having discussions and refining things as you go. You can link it into social networks, and you can skin it and brand it yourself, so it's quite customizable. And it's quite easy to engage with it, so if anyone's got social networks or are linked into anything like that, it's very easy to join it. So that was something that we used. It might be useful for you, or it might be that other things are more appropriate. In the handbook we've got sort of a list of some other ones that you might want to look at. Okay, and then it was day 2. So this morning we looked at how to frame challenges. We looked at the challenge areas, and then we looked at the criteria for putting them on the platform. So that was being solution focused, positive, using certain language like co-develop, co-create, working with you rather than delivering services for you, having to try and change that dynamic and balance from parent-child to adult-adult, and having conversations with your compatriots out there, your stakeholders in the community, and how you actually try and frame the language that you use to really sort of create that dynamic where they're working with you to co-create the solutions. We then looked at how you frame it in terms of boundaries, because if you have it as a completely open thing, you often end up with lots of people spending a lot of time and effort coming up with creative ideas that you would never be able to pilot, because it would cost £5 million and it would take you 15 years of clinical trials. So it's how you bring the challenge boundaries into the challenge on the platform. So we went through that as well. I've lost my place. Okay, then how do you keep the conversation going? How do you steer it? Who needs to be on the platform? So that's the people driving the process. That's your challenge team. And what sort of language, again, do you use to try and acknowledge the fact that people are making the effort, to try and keep the conversation going, and also to try and direct them as to how long it will be on there for, and what's going to happen to their solution or solutions once they've actually gone onto the platform? How are you going to take it forward? We've looked at other ways of building your GeniUS community. So you've got this crowd of people who are really enthusiastic about working with you to solve city challenges. Now, they're already on the platform, so you've identified them, which is quite hard work. Now you've got them talking to you. This is a great way to engage businesses and residents directly with the city. So you're developing relationships with those people. It's no longer unsolicited ideas. There's a person at the other end and they know you as a person because you're speaking to each other on the platform. So how can you complement that? There are people that might not necessarily be online or want to be online. How do you build your community and physically speak face to face with them? You could have networking events. You could have other groups like Twitter or Facebook that would enhance the platform. You can ask people to phone you or have a suggestion box or email ideas into you, and then you can actually facilitate getting them onto the platform to hold the information in one place. So it's how you build your community and how you interact with them on a much more frequent basis. We then looked through how you shortlist ideas, and that was quite a fun part. We had all of you filling out the cards based on being a student or a retired person or an academic, that started throwing in the kinds of ideas you might get on a platform, and then based around those, we went through the criteria again. Is it pilotable? Is it affordable? You know, looking at those criteria for how you would take your pilot forward. And then you shortlisted your ideas down to 2 or 3 based around that. We then looked at how you would then develop that, how you would take it forward. And for each of the groups, that was different. So you were looking at supply chain, you were looking at identifying and researching people that could provide the products that you might need. You looked at bringing the solutions together to create hybrids, where you're actually taking little bits of everyone's solution and you're building them together into things like your co-creation space. So you're actually, you're shaping the ideas, the raw ideas that are coming through. You're further refining them based on the needs of your city, and then you're actually starting to pull them together into something that looks more like a pilot. Then you need to try and sell the idea again to your main stakeholders, to the people that might fund this, to the people that might sign it off. And so through doing that, you're developing a business case or a project plan, which basically de-risks the project as much as you can. It provides the background to it, the need, why you're doing it, what resource you might need, how long it might take, and what the potential impact might be for your city if it's successful, and then looking at how you would take that forward if it became successful to scale. So we're starting to talk a bit through that. We also very briefly looked at our process, the Delivery and Innovation Fund, and the kinds of things that are criteria for us. So for example, you've got to use it to seed innovation in the city. It can't just be used for something that already exists. The innovation fund that we run is to seed innovation that would not otherwise happen in the city. And it's often stuff that hasn't had an identified need because the community doesn't know the need's there yet. You're actually providing some solutions before the community realised that's something that would actually help them. And then we understood how to progress the pilot through to scale up. So if it's successful, you can measure the impact, you can have stage gates and milestones, and you can identify whether you think it's going as well as it should be. If it isn't going as well as it should be, you're looking at mechanisms to shut it down, potentially learn from that. That's called smart failing. So you're learning all the things that might not have worked particularly well, and then you're taking stock, stepping back, looking at the learning and deciding whether you want to go on a different route or whether you want to do something else altogether. You're looking at developing techniques to measure the impact of the projects. So that could be hard stuff like you've gone from 27,000 shebeens to 20,000 shebeens. That's a good hard statistic that you can demonstrate. There's also the softer stuff. So you're measuring the amount of collaborations, you're measuring the amount of people who visited your GeniUS platform, because there's statistics in the back that you can look at that. How many people are looking at your specific challenge? How many collaborations are coming out of it? You're writing case studies, so you're just getting qualitative information through from some of your stakeholders or end users, and looking at how you tell the story and how you sell the idea to other people. So, it's been a fairly intense 2 days. And then finally we were looking at how you navigate through the bureaucracy. So you've got a fantastic idea, you've got the backing of your community because they helped create the solution in the first place, you've identified who the people are that you need to sign it off, you're ready to pilot it, now you need to just double check before you go that there's no snags at the last minute through bureaucracy, and making sure that there's ways around that, looking at ways to work around the bureaucracy in order to make it happen. and then you're ready to pilot. Thank you. So, the next bit at the end, I'm going to ask Carlo up. And just before I do, I'd just like to say it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure running this workshop with you guys. You've been fantastic. And the amount of insight and input and creative thinking, especially at the end of the day when we're all absolutely knackered, you know, has been really appreciated. And we've probably got out of this workshop as much, if not more, than you lot have. And it's been really good to compare and contrast the different cultures in the different cities. So, finally, where do we go from here? So, you've done all this hard work. Let's see how we can actually take it forward in Cape Town. So I'm going to invite Carlo up to talk a bit about that, if that's okay.